welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of every recipient of the Medal of Honor. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrosch, and today's episode is episode number 314. And I don't have any birthdays or news to report for today. So all I'm going to ask of you is to be sure to go to talesofhonorpodcast.com to see more stories. You can actually read them over there as well as listen along. And it makes it very easy to share with others. So please share with your friends and family. That's all I got for today. Let's move right on into episode number 314, once again with the Vietnam War. George was born on the 19th of September, 1937 in Dexter, Missouri. He was a member of the Army National Guard and Army Reserves before he enlisted and served for 4 years in the U.S. Air Force. He also worked as an Alaskan smoke jumper in remote parts of Alaska, helping fight wildfires. George attended Arkansas State University, from which he graduated with an education degree, and he then joined the U.S. Army again, this time in active duty. He attended Officer Candidate School and was commissioned a second lieutenant on the 22nd of June, 1965. By the time George was deployed to the Republic of Vietnam, he was a first lieutenant and was the Assistant Intelligence Officer for Headquarters Company, 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, 1st Special Forces, and it was his actions on the 7th of February, 1967, that would earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life and above and beyond the call of duty, First Lieutenant Sisler was the platoon leader advisor to a special United States Vietnam exploitation force. While on patrol deep within enemy-dominated territory, First Lieutenant Sisler's platoon was attacked from three sides by a company-sized enemy force. First Lieutenant Sisler quickly rallied his men, deployed them to a better defensive position, called for airstrikes, and moved among his men to encourage and direct their efforts. Learning that 2 men had been wounded and were unable to pull back to the perimeter, First Lieutenant Sisler charged from the position through intense enemy fire to assist them. He reached the men and began carrying one of them back to the perimeter when he was taken under more intensive weapons fire by the enemy. Laying down his wounded comrade, he killed 3 onrushing enemy soldiers by firing his rifle and silenced the enemy machine gun with a grenade. As he returned the wounded man to the perimeter, the left flank of the position came under extremely heavy attack by the superior enemy force, and several additional men of his platoon were quickly wounded. Realizing the need for instant action to prevent his position from being overrun, First Lieutenant Sisler picked up some grenades and charged single-handedly into the enemy onslaught, firing his weapon and throwing grenades. This singularly heroic action broke up the vicious assault and forced the enemy to begin withdrawing. Despite the continuing enemy fire, First Lieutenant Sisler was moving about the battlefield directing airstrikes when he fell mortally wounded. His extraordinary leadership, infinite courage, and selfless concern for his men saved the lives of a number of his comrades. His actions reflect great credit upon himself and uphold the highest traditions of the military service. George Kenton Sisler was 29 years old when he died. He and his wife Jane had 2 children, David and James, and he is buried in Dexter Cemetery in his hometown. The Arkansas State University's Reserve Officers Training Corps has a Ranger Challenge team named Sisler's Raiders in his honor, and his name appears on panel 15E, line 7 of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. And that was a Tale of Honor. Thank you for listening to Tales of Honor Podcast. Head on over to talesofhonorpodcast.com where you can read these stories, see other ways to support the show, and easily share a story with your friends and family. Tales of Honor Podcast is written and produced by Christoph Ambrosch, and theme song, A New Beginning, is by Ben Sound. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrosch. Thanks for listening.